The President of the United States had just wrapped up his visit to England when he invited the Prime Minister aboard his imposing Air Force One, but shortly after takeoff an unidentified transport aircraft appeared, slipping into their airspace like a ghostly shadow. Before anyone could react, the terrorists unleashed a swarm of suicide drones that dove straight toward the presidential plane. The captain, battle-hardened veteran and skilled pilot, did not hesitate. He ordered the machine guns to fire without pause, but the torrent of drones seemed endless. Within seconds, one of them struck the gun turrets, knocking out most of their defenses. Desperate, Bruce changed strategy. Instead of targeting the drones, he aimed directly at the transport aircraft leading the assault. Yet its armor seemed indestructible, and as if in retaliation, the drones surged forward, tearing a massive hole. Through the fuselage, chaos erupted inside. Passengers were sucked into the sky by the vacuum, and even the president was nearly dragged out by the pressure. At the last second, the captain dove the aircraft to 10,000 feet, trying to stabilize. But the terrorists weren't about to retreat. Soon, an entire swarm of drones surrounded the plane, ready for the final strike. That's when Bruce activated the electronic countermeasures, desperately buying precious seconds. What no one knew was that the disaster had begun hours earlier. Disguised as a chef, an assassin had slipped into the control room. In mere seconds, he executed part of the crew, severed all communications, and transmitted the aircraft's coordinates to his allies. That was the signal for the transport plane to close in and unleash hell in the skies. Even after surviving the first assault, Air Force One was in ruins. 2 engines were ablaze, smoke poured through the corridors, and the controls were barely responsive. Bruce led Clark and Barry toward the evacuation capsule, but before they could escape, another drone slammed into the cockpit, sending the aircraft into a deadly nosedive. Amid the chaos, the assassin reached the escape module first. He seized the last parachute and set fire to the remaining gear. By the time Clark and Barry arrived, all they saw was the traitor vanishing into the void. Time was running out. Through burning wreckage, Bruce found 2 parachutes still intact. With unwavering determination, he strapped them onto the leaders and guided them to the exit. Clark hesitated, torn about leaving the rest of the crew behind, but Bruce's voice cut through the fire and smoke. Your mission is to survive. Without another word, he shoved Clark and Barry out of the plane. 2.5 seconds later, the parachutes burst open, slicing through the silence of the skies above Belarus. The 2 most powerful men in the West had escaped by a thread, while behind them, the presidential aircraft plunged in flames toward the Earth.